There are moments when the most revealing geopolitical shifts do not begin on a debate stage or inside a cabinet room, but in the almost invisible rhythms of daily life. A small gesture, a routine movement, can quietly reflect the balance of global power. Think about the simple act of lifting a warm cup to your lips each morning. Most people never pause long enough to consider that this everyday motion connects entire nations, trade networks, and political decisions. And yet, recently, that ordinary sip has become a symbol of something larger, something reshaped almost overnight by an unexpected failure of American strategy. Before we go deeper into this unfolding situation, make sure to subscribe and leave a like so you never miss updates on the global shifts influencing your world. For decades, the United States operated under an unspoken assumption that its market was the gravitational center of global commerce, that any producer from Brazil to Vietnam would ultimately bend to American rules, no matter how abruptly those rules changed. But assumptions, especially old ones, tend to crack under pressure. And this time, they shattered. Many heard only the headline version of events: a tariff spike, complaints from Brazil, and Washington once again flexing its economic authority. But the mechanics beneath that headline told a far more consequential story. Policymakers in the United States believed that raising costs on the world's largest coffee exporter would force compliance. They assumed the exporter had no choice but to absorb the pressure. Instead, the move backfired with stunning efficiency. Brazil looked at the new tariff and treated it not as a threat, but as information. If a major trade partner was willing to destabilize a long-standing relationship overnight, then long-standing loyalty no longer had value. So Brazil shifted its exports, not with dramatic announcements, but through a quiet rebalancing. And the nation that unexpectedly benefited from that pivot was Canada, a country whose climate cannot sustain a single acre of coffee farmland, yet suddenly became the preferred destination for shipments once destined for American ports. What happened was not whimsical. It was structural. Brazil made a simple calculation. Predictability is worth more than size, and Canada offered predictability. This was never just about coffee. It was a test of how global systems respond to volatility. Markets recoil from uncertainty. Institutions resist it. Exporters avoid it. And when a major power injects unpredictability into supply chains, the consequences ripple far beyond one commodity. The US expected obedience. What it received was avoidance. Shipments began redirecting northward. Contracts migrated. Logistics companies recalibrated their routes. And Canadian ports, long accustomed to steady but modest flows, found themselves handling volumes that had once been considered immovable American assets. What makes this shift so striking is that Canada never attempted a takeover. There were no bold proclamations, no aggressive maneuvers, no strategic campaigns to claim dominance in any commodity market. Canada simply maintained what everyone else seemed to forget. Trade works best when trust is stable, rules are clear, and policy does not swing with the political weather. Meanwhile, uncertainty spread through the American market. Importers were left scrambling. Businesses that relied on steady pricing found their models collapsing under sudden cost increases. Retailers braced for consumer backlash as the familiar affordability of coffee evaporated. And while all this unfolded, Canada quietly offered an alternative defined by steadiness rather than spectacle. This entire episode reveals an uncomfortable truth for the United States. Power no longer resides only in economic size or military muscle. Power now depends on reliability. And when reliability erodes, partners look elsewhere. To understand the full significance of this shift, it helps to look at the institutional landscape in which it occurred. The US has long cultivated an image of commercial leadership, but leadership is not inherited, it is continually earned. When tariffs appear without warning, when policy directions reverse unpredictably, and when trade becomes a tool for messaging rather than cooperation, partners begin seeking insulation from that volatility. Brazil's response illustrated this perfectly. The country did not react emotionally. It reacted rationally. It expanded its partnerships with Europe, deepened shipments to Asia, and embraced Canada as a long-term, low-risk buyer. For Brazil, the question was never ideological. It was logistical. Who offered steady ground? Canada, by maintaining the same quiet consistency it has for years, suddenly found itself rising as a stabilizing force within North America's supply chain architecture. Its advantage was not aggression. It was dependability. As the rerouting of shipments continued, a deeper consequence emerged. Supply chains have memory. And once that memory resets, it rarely reverts to old patterns with the same loyalty. The US learned that not through conflict, but through silence. The silence of ships docking in Vancouver instead of Miami, the silence of contracts signed elsewhere, the silence of exporters choosing stability over size. Inside the United States, importers were left navigating a landscape they no longer recognized. Their cost models became unpredictable, their planning cycles shortened, and their long-standing relationships with Brazilian suppliers became strained. Consistency vanished, and hesitation took its place. But in global trade, hesitation is an opening, and Canada filled it with quiet readiness. Picture the internal decision-making process at a Brazilian export firm during this period. New U.S. tariffs abruptly doubled costs. Profit margins evaporated, stability collapsed, and at the very same moment, new opportunities appeared from partners offering clarity, long-term agreements, and predictable pricing. For a business responsible for thousands of farmers and dependent workers, the choice was simple. Follow the path that ensures survival. These decisions, replicated across hundreds of Brazilian firms, collectively reshaped the flow of a major global commodity. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was permanent. The irony is that the United States has not lost its economic strength. What it lost was consistency. Power today is measured not only by output or consumption, but by how reliably a nation honors the expectations it sets. When expectations become unstable, even the strongest economy becomes a risky partner. Canada, often overshadowed in global economic discussions, became the unexpected anchor in this moment. Not by expanding its influence, but by holding firm when another nation wavered. In a world shaken by sudden policy swings, that steadiness became a competitive advantage more valuable than size. Every redirected shipment carried a message. Stability is now the deciding factor in global trade. Nations no longer reward mere dominance. They reward consistency. Brazil rewarded consistency. Exporters worldwide rewarded consistency. Consumers who now face rising prices in the US are experiencing the cost of unpredictability in the most direct way possible. And this story is far from over. The reshaping of trade flows does not stop with one commodity. Once partners begin hedging against volatility, they reassess everything. They reconsider routes, renegotiate deals, and rebuild their supply chains around nations that treat cooperation as an ongoing commitment rather than a political tool. This moment marks a quiet but profound shift in the global distribution of trust. And trust, once moved, rarely returns to its origin with the same force. As this new reality unfolds, make sure to subscribe and leave a like so you don't miss the next major turn in this rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape.